Today we're going to be discussing the Broomell radiator valve. This, I believe, is version number 2, and it came out sometime around 1906, I believe, and is 3/4 inch and is the so-called quintuple valve. Now, on the valve body itself, it just says, as you can see, Vapor Philadelphia and patented. It is nickel plated. The nickel plating is not the greatest. The casting, this is where the radiator would have been attached to. The casting is also a little rough. This is, of course, the inlet 3/4 inch pipe. And currently it is in the full open position, and each one of these detents corresponds to increasing apertures, increasing number of apertures, allowing greater or lesser amounts of steam in an integer fashion. So this is fully shut, but not really. You can still blow through it at high enough pressure. So the system was designed to operate at extremely low pressures, which was fairly unique at the time. The handle, by the way, is created by us based on a pattern that was graciously loaned to us by the Wagner Free Institute of Science in Philadelphia. They actually have these valves actually hooked up to radiators, and they work. So we were sent an artifact which we took measurements of, and were able to recreate this in plastic using a 3D printer. When I found this valve, the handle was long since gone, and I found it in this position, and it looked like basically somebody had gone down to Ace Hardware and grabbed a screw and ran it in there, and really didn't fit very well. When I got the part from the Wagner Institute, it came with the exact same screw. So the screw is a 1/4 20, which was, I was expecting a OEM part. See there, 1/4 20. And the only real difference between this and a modern 1/4 20 is that the head is much smaller by several fractions of an inch, and so it's designed to fit right into this handle here. And eventually, to make this fit, I had to run a 1/4 20 tap to clear this out, and that made the screw fit better. That's why I thought this was some off-brand, but very strange. But be that as it may, moving on, we're going to break this valve apart, find out what's inside. It's not easy. There's nothing really to grip. Somebody has tried in the past to get it apart. This is generally used to thread the valve onto the supply pipe. So what I had to do was grip this with a wrench and get a rod and use it to lever the pipe apart, the valve apart rather, and this is then affixed to the piping, and this spins off to expose the innards. And there is the classic quintuple valve arrangement, internal part arrangement. As you can see, it's fully shut now, and then as you advance the valve, more holes are exposed. And it doesn't matter which direction you move. Same number of holes per detent. So breaking this down further, quarter 20 brass cap screw, exposing a quarter 20 thread, and the disc comes out. Now I've polished it a little bit to provide smooth action, and I did find several errors in this. There's a crack there, a stress crack, which I believe was been there for a long time, and there's another crack there. This disc is made of cast iron, has sort of a blotchy look to it. And I wanted to do a shout out to Mr. Brian Reynolds of Little Falls, New Jersey, who I had a great conversations with, and he shared with me his experiences in rebuilding his Broomells in his house. And he graciously sent me this Broomell disc that was made for him, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Polished brass, brazing there is spectacular. Lovely patina. It's really nice of him to send me this, and I wanted to share that with you. Actually, better made than this in many ways. Obviously went into a slightly smaller valve. I believe his version is a later version than the one displayed here. Just lovely. That's a keeper. Moving on. So this comes out now, exposing the follower. And this is a 3/8 inch rod. And the part that keeps the timing correct is this bevel here, which corresponds to the bevel on the quintuple plate. And that allows you to know what position the plate is below. So inside of here is a bronze spring, still in good shape, and a following washer. And at the very bottom is packing. That right now is PTFE, polytetrafluoroethylene, or Teflon. What was there was this. It was about 4 inches of, I'm going to say 1/8 or maybe 7/32 fiber, which dare not speak its name, I suspect. That's why it's in this plastic bag. And in order to repack it, that fiber is removed, and I would recommend getting a 3/8 inch rod, installing it, working about 3 or 4 inches of packing, PTFE packing, valve packing, and ramming it down, and that should enable you to rebuild this valve, at least repack it, and then reassemble it as shown. The other part of the show that is seldom discussed, and I believe was made this heating system successful, was the device at the end, the other end of the valve, and that's this Broomell fitting here. That is the air vent, and it's, as you can see, it's quite small and would act as a major restrictor of the air leaving the system. What's supposed to happen in this little space here is water is supposed to be trapped and allowed to wander through, and it doesn't take much pressure to blow this out while it's continually being recreated in the radiator to refill this. Happy 4th of July, folks. You don't want to add much pressure to this. So this restrictor here combined with the restrictor here, these are fairly large apertures altogether, classically, is that that would enable one to actually have the control of the steam entering the radiator. And the part that's not shown, probably the most important part of the Broomell system, I've never seen actually out in the field, and that is the part that allows you to control the steam, and it's depicted in the lost art of steam heat, and it's the regulator device, and keeps the pressure down to 4 ounces per square inch, and that is what really makes this system work. This valve in and of itself would allow too much steam to pass to be effective. So unless you already have low pressure to begin with, this thing isn't going to do you much good. So the controls at the boiler room are become necessary to get this to work, and I'm having a heck of a time getting that back together again. Let's see what we got here. There we are. So there we go. Goodness gracious. And there we go. Dropped right in. And back in place. And the nut goes on like that. And I guess it's ready for another 100 years. See you then.